Most people call this Cersei's greatest betrayal. I think that misses the point entirely. Yes, in the Season 7 finale, Cersei stands in the dragon pit in front of Daenerys, Jon Snow, Tyrion, and every major player left alive in Westeros, and solemnly pledges to send the Lannister armies north to fight the army of the dead. She shakes on it. She lets them believe it. She watches them leave with relief on their faces. And then, the moment they are gone, she tells Jaime the truth. She was never going to send anyone. She plans to use the Golden Company to consolidate the South while her enemies bleed out against the dead. Let them all die. Let whoever survives come back weakened. Then finish them. Everyone watching called it ruthless, strategic, peak Cersei. What it actually was, and this is the part the show wants you to see, is the decision that ends her. Not because the plan was tactically wrong. It was tactically reasonable in the cold, short-term arithmetic of Westerosi politics, but because of the lie underneath the plan. Not the lie she told Daenerys, the lie she told herself, the lie that she could play the Game of Thrones while the world was ending and come out the other side with a throne worth sitting in. What the Dragon Pit Agreement actually was. To understand what Cersei is throwing away in this scene, you need to understand what the Dragon Pit meeting was and how extraordinary it was that it happened at all. Jon Snow has brought a white South, an actual undead soldier from the army of the dead, captured beyond the wall, transported in a box to King's Landing is proof that the threat is real. He opens the box in the middle of the Dragon Pit, in front of everyone, and the thing attacks. For a moment, a genuine rare moment in Game of Thrones. The politics stops. The Hound tears the white apart. The pieces keep moving. Cersei watches a severed hand skitter across the stone toward her and does not look away. She understands what she is seeing. She is not stupid. She is one of the most intelligent political operators in the show, and she knows, looking at that thing, that if the army of the dead reaches King's Landing, it does not negotiate. It does not make deals. It does not care about dynasties or names or the Iron Throne. It just kills and adds to its numbers. She agrees to the truce. She agrees to send her armies north. And then she goes back inside the Red Keep and tells Jaime she lied. The plan, and why it makes sense on paper, from a purely tactical standpoint, Cersei's reasoning is not indefensible. The Golden Company is a professional army of 10,000 soldiers, the finest mercenary force in Essos. With Euron's fleet transporting them to Westeros, she has a significant military asset, arriving just as her enemies go north to die or be depleted. If the dead win, if the army of the dead wipes out Daenerys, Jon, and every northern force, they will come south eventually. But Cersei's calculation is that the wildfire caches and the walls of King's Landing, combined with the Golden Company, give her a fighting chance against an enemy weakened from the battle in the north. If the living win, if somehow Daenerys and Jon defeat the Night King, they come back south having burned through their dragons, their forces, their resources. Cersei meets them with a fresh army and a fortified city. Heads I win, tails you lose. It is the kind of calculation Tywin Lannister would have admired. And it is missing something so fundamental that the whole architecture collapses the moment you name it. This is actually the part that gets me every time I think through Cersei's arc. Because the plan is not stupid. It is the kind of thing that sounds brilliant in a war room, but it is built on an assumption so catastrophically wrong that I find myself slightly amazed she could not see it. She is assuming the game continues. She is treating the army of the dead as a variable in a political equation, a threat to be managed, a resource to be deployed against her enemies, rather than as an existential condition that changes the rules of everything. The Game of Thrones only functions because there is a world to rule. If the dead win, there is no throne. There is no King's Landing. There is no Golden Company. There are no Lannisters. There is just the endless grinding advance of an army that cannot be bought or bargained with, and does not stop. Cersei has played the game so long, so completely, that she has lost the ability to see outside it. The lie she told herself. Here is the distinction that matters most in this scene, and the show does not make it loudly enough. Cersei did not lie to Daenerys. That part is obvious. What she did to Daenerys was straightforward betrayal, a tactical decision with strategic reasoning behind it. The deeper lie is the one she told herself in the moment she decided to make the calculation at all. What she told herself the threat was manageable. She told herself that the army of the dead was just another piece on the board, that her enemies dying against it was a gift, that whoever survived the North would be weakened enough to defeat, that she could outlast this the way she had outlasted everything else, through patience, through cunning, through the refusal to flinch. This is the lie, not the tactical miscalculation. Smart people make those. The lie is deeper than tactics. It is Cersei refusing, at the most consequential moment of her life, to update the model of the world she has been operating with. The model that says, power is zero-sum. Allies are temporary enemies. Every truce is a weakness waiting to be exploited. Every gesture of cooperation is a setup for betrayal. Trust no one. Hold everything. That model worked in King's Landing. It worked against the Tyrells and the Martells and the small council and every scheming lord who thought they could outmaneuver a Lannister. It does not work against something that does not play the game. What it costs her. Jaime. Cersei's refusal to honor the truce costs her many things, but the most immediate and personal cost is standing right in front of her when she reveals it. Jaime. He has just come back from the dragon pit. He has seen the white. He has seen Cersei shake hands with Daenerys Targaryen, the woman who arrived with dragons and armies to take the throne, and agree to a truce. He allowed himself to believe, for the first time in years, that Cersei understood what was at stake, that the woman he loves had looked at a severed hand crawling across stone and understood that some things are bigger than the game. And then she tells him it was all performance. I always knew you were the stupidest Lannister. Euron says this to Jaime in the final season, but it is Cersei's contempt for Jaime's belief in the truce that plants the seed. When she reveals she was lying, she is not just revealing a tactical decision. She is revealing that she thinks his instinct to honor the agreement was naive, weak, beneath what a Lannister should be. Jaime rides north anyway. He fights at Winterfell. He knights Brienne. He becomes, for 3 episodes, the version of himself that the Harrenhal confession implied he could be. Because Cersei's lie pushed him out the door. That is the first domino. She lies to everyone in the dragon pit, but the person the lie actually moves is Jaime. And Jaime riding north is the beginning of everything she loses in Season 8. The isolation it creates. Pull the camera back from the immediate tactical question and look at what Cersei's decision produces over the following season. She ends Season 7 with Jaime gone, Tyrion working against her, and every major power in Westeros aligned against her or about to be. Her only meaningful alliance is Euron Greyjoy, a man she is using, who knows he is being used, and who is entirely self-interested. She has the Golden Company. She has the Iron Fleet. She has King's Landing. She has no one who is with her, because they believe in her. This is the thing Cersei has never understood about power, the thing Tywin understood and she missed. Despite all his teaching, force can hold a city, gold can buy an army, but when the final crisis comes, what saves you is not the army you hired, it is the people who chose to be there. Daenerys has Tyrion, who loves her enough to commit treason for her. She has Grey Worm, who fights because he believes in what she represents. She has Jon, who follows her into the worst battle in living memory. Cersei has purchased soldiers. When Daenerys burns the city, the purchased soldiers cannot stop her. Euron fights for himself and loses. The mountain is a monster she created and cannot fully control. The Red Keep collapses around her and she dies alone in the dark. Except for Jaime, who came back not because she deserved it, but because he could not stop himself. The lie in the dragon pit did not create this isolation by itself, but it was the clearest expression of the logic that did. The logic that said, everyone is an enemy. Every alliance is temporary. The only thing that matters is holding power, and I will hold it alone if I have to. She had to, and she could not. The fairest defense of what she did. I want to give this argument real weight because I think it deserves it. Some viewers, and I have seen this case made thoughtfully, argue that Cersei's refusal to honor the truce was not self-destruction. It was the most rational response available to someone in her position. She is surrounded by enemies. Daenerys has dragons. Jon has the North. Together they have everything needed to take the throne regardless of whether the Night King is defeated. Sending the Lannister armies north does not guarantee survival. It guarantees her military is depleted in a war she has no stake in, fighting for an outcome that still leaves her facing 2 conquerors with a weakened hand. From that angle, what exactly was she supposed to do? Honor an agreement with the people who are coming to take everything from her and hope they remember her cooperation when they arrive? That is a fair point. And that's a fair point. But don't think there is a good deal bump. And it is true that Cersei had no reason to trust that Daenerys or Jon would spare her in exchange for the armies. But here is where the argument breaks down. The choice was not between sending her armies and keeping them. It was between engaging with reality and refusing to. There were options between full compliance and total deception. She could have negotiated terms. She could have sent a token force and held the rest. She could have been honest with Jaime about her reasoning Instead of contemptuous of his disagreement, she chose the most isolated version of the strategy available. And that choice tells you everything about where she was by season 7, operating entirely alone inside her own head, treating even her closest remaining ally as someone whose loyalty had to be managed rather than earned. The final truth. I'll say whatever I need to say to send them away and deal with whatever comes next. Cersei Lannister is one of the most intelligent characters in Game of Thrones. She is also one of the most limited. Not limited in cunning. Not limited in ruthlessness. Limited in the way that all people are limited who have lived so long inside a single model of the world that they cannot see outside it. The model that says power is the only real thing, that everyone is a threat, that love is a weakness, and trust is a trap, and the only way to survive is to hold everything tightly and never let go. In King's Landing, in the Game of Thrones as it was played for 8 seasons, this model produced results. It kept her alive. It kept her sons on the throne. It neutralized enemies and consolidated power, and made her one of the most formidable operators in the show. And when the game changed, when something arrived that did not play by the rules the model was built for, she could not update, could not see that the army of the dead was not a piece on her board, but a condition that changed the board itself. She lied to Daenerys and Jon in the dragon pit, but the lie that killed her was the one she told herself, that the game was still the game, that she could still win it, that holding the Iron Throne through fire and blood and the deaths of 1,000,000 people was the same kind of victory as holding it in peacetime. She died in the city she refused, and not under the stones of the castle she would not surrender, with Jaime, who came back despite everything, because even her most loyal person could only stay for love, not for belief. Nobody died for Cersei Lannister. They died because of her, with her, near her. But nobody died believing in what she stood for, because by the end, even she had stopped pretending she stood for anything except the chair. And the chair was not worth dying for. It was just stone. Here is what I want to know. Do you think there was a version of Cersei's plan that could have worked?